What's going on, y'all? It's your boy D Sports Man. I apologize for just it's been a while since I recorded a video. Like I said, I had to lock in with finals for school, but finally get a little break to make some content. I want to shout out my boy Telly Doe for the video inspiration. Today we're gonna be talking about who is the better receiver between the next superstars of wide receivers, right? For LSU, Brian Thomas Jr., my dog, Brian Thomas Jr., and Malik Neighbors. So we're going to be talking about who to me is the better wide receiver between those two. And, we'll break down like some analysts and why I believe this guy is the better wide receiver, but who has the higher floor and who has the higher ceiling in their careers. Because as you know, it's only been their first year and they've already proven to be top 5 to 10 wide receivers. So without further ado, let's get started. So in my opinion, like I said, my friend, he asked me a really important, or not important, but he asked me a good question. He said, who to you is the better wide receiver? Do you think Brian Thomas Jr.? Because obviously he's a Giants fan. So, we kind of have some competition too, like some friendly competition. Like, hey, my wide receiver one's better than your wide receiver one. But who truly do you believe, unbiased, who do you believe is the better wide receiver? And it was tough for me as a fan to say this, but to me, the better wide receiver is Malik Neighbors. And let me tell you why. The reason why, in my opinion, that Malik Neighbors is the better wide receiver is because simply when you go back in college, he was the wide receiver one in college. And I compare it kind of to how it was when Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson were there when they were playing with Joe Burrow, obviously neighbors and BTJ, they were playing with Jaden Daniels, both Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. But as you remember, Jamar Chase was the wide receiver one, even though Justin Jefferson was also going crazy and going off on that offense. And as you know, Jefferson primarily played in the slot that whole year. And then obviously Malik Neighbors played on I'm sorry, Jamar Chase was obviously your more all around receiver, moved him around basically on your true X receiver. And as you know, won the Bullet took off award that year and had like 20 touchdowns. Say Justin Jefferson had like 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. It was truly an incredible season for that LSU 2019-2020 national championship team. But I compare it to those guys because I actually compare um those guys to each other. I compare Malik Neighbors to like a Jamar Chase, that smaller 6 foot wide receiver, but with that physique, right? With that running back type of build, and who just has that dog in him, that mentality, right? That dog mentality in him. And BTJ, like I said, BTJ's more chill, more laid back, and obviously, as you know, Justin Jefferson's a little more outgoing as well. But BTJ's kind of to me reminds me of Julio Jones. He'll talk a little smack here and there, but he really likes to kill you in silence, right? It's kind of like how Julio Jones or like a Kawhi Leonard in basketball, right? They don't talk all that smack and all that stuff like a lot of players do, which is nothing wrong with it, but they prefer to just let their play speak for itself, which is really cool to do. Absolutely, 100%. But as you know, like I said, when you go back to those points there, Brian Thomas Jr. has that more. To me, Brian Thomas Jr. is the more complete receiver of the two, right? Because in my opinion, Malik Neighbors, what he does better compared to Brian Thomas Jr. And there's no knock on these guys at all. I think is the ability to break tackles. Again, having that running back build for running backs, right? They have to break tackles to make bigger plays. I think Malik Neighbors is a better ball carrier breaking tackles. You can make a debate too, like who has better hands. Personally, maybe like stronger hands wise. I think Malik Neighbors has stronger hands. And both wide receivers, they had some drops as well, right? They had their kind of bad plays, but at the end of the day, too, again, who's the more complete receiver? In my opinion, that's Malik Neighbors. Now, I'm gonna actually look up right here. We're gonna compare their stats because, and also, what I also want to compare to is who is the better wide receiver right now. The better wide receiver right now is Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. played all 17 games. So let's review this real quick. So we're gonna compare their numbers. So I'm gonna use Sport Reference here. So Malik Neighbors, he played in 15 games. So he missed 2 games with that concussion. And in those 2 games, he had 109 catches for 1,204 yards and 7 touchdowns, which averaged 11 yards after the catch. So really great season by him. Mind you, he missed 2 games, so he could have had way more catches, and I think he broke Odell's single season reception record. I think Odell ended up having more receiving yards than that, and Odell only played 12 games in his rookie year. So that's how crazy Odell was in his rookie year. But he broke Odell's rookie reception record by 17 catches. But then when we go to the guy, the legend, the GOAT, in my opinion, yes, my GOAT. So less catches, right? He had 87 catches, Brian Thomas Jr., but he had more receiving yards, played 17 games, had 1,282 yards and 10 touchdowns. Not to mention, both quarterbacks again kind of played with, multiple quarterbacks that year, right? You had, Daniel Jones, I think Drew Lock, and that's what makes these guys special is, despite whoever's throwing you the football, right? Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and all those guys. Tommy DeVito for Malik Neighbors. Then for Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence. But then, of course, Trevor Lawrence gets injured, and then in comes Mac Jones, who primarily got him the football the rest of the half of the year. And I think, too, Brian Thomas Jr., to me, probably would have had even better numbers last year if if the offense made it their goal to get him the football early before the season. They finally waited, I don't know why, until Trevor Lawrence got injured to finally get Brian Thomas Jr. football, and that's what we have been clamoring for to let BTJ eat. But that's either here nor there. But obviously, as you see right now, Brian Thomas Jr., when you rank a wide receiver list, Brian Thomas Jr. should be ahead of Malik Neighbors. He was the better wide receiver, played more games, and even though he had less catches, he had more receiving yards and he had a higher yards per catch, 14.7 yards per catch. So that shows his ability to stretch the field, right? So, who to me has the higher ceiling? I think the floor is Malik Neighbors, but I think who has the higher ceiling? To me, as well, who has the higher ceiling? I think Brian Thomas Jr. has a potential chance to have a higher ceiling as a wide receiver than Malik Neighbors. And the reason why is because, again, Brian Thomas Jr. is 6'4, 209 pounds, runs a 4.3 40, and is blazing fast. And mind you, he was the vertical threat in college. He was the guy just running the deep routes, the deep crossing routes. Kind of maybe he'll run some, other routes and stuff like that there, but they mainly had him running those deeper in and out routes and stuff like that. But when he got into the league, Brian Thomas proved that, hey, I'm not just this kind of one trick pony type of guy where I'm just running vertical all the time. No, I can do more. I'm a wide receiver. Just LSU just had me running deep routes all the time. Where as you saw, Malik Neighbors was the more complete wide receiver they had. LSU had, and that's why to me he's the better wide receiver overall. Is because he's the more complete, breaks tackles, has the physique, and can run pretty much the in outs and all that. You can get him the ball anywhere. But Brian Thomas Jr. also proved that the same as well. Jacksonville last year, Press Taylor even cut him. We could say we won about Press Taylor. One thing he did do was he got him the football in multiple ways, and used Brian Thomas Jr.'s skill set, and I think pretty much maximized what he could do. He's not just this one trick pony, right? So that's to me why I think he has a higher ceiling, in my opinion, compared to uh, Malik Neighbors. And like I said, these are two elite wide receivers. They're proving to why they might be LSU's wide receiver. You now again Ohio State, they're kind of pushing it too. They're kind of pushing towards that as well because as you know, Emeka Ibuka just went in the first round in the 20 in this past year's draft by the Tampa Bay Bucks. Right, and he could potentially be their wide receiver run because I think I actually like that pick by the Bucks because they're planning for the future. Because when Mike Evans is getting up there in age, he's getting older, and not to mention Chris Godwin is coming off some injuries. So you want to have as much depth as possible. I could see him being their wide receiver 3 to start and working out in the slot for the outside. Also, too, like when you compare like both offenses now, like with Jacksonville, the goal to for Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be like for since Liam Cohen has come in, right? So as y'all know, my Jaguars took Travis Hunter. We're gonna make a video shortly too about um, my views on the Jaguars draft, and also we'll potentially get some draft grades in as well. Those will be the plans there. But another thing too with Brian Thomas Jr. that we could really see him really take that next step is because seeing what Liam Cohen was able to do. Liam Cohen was able to do right last year with those group in Tampa Bay. But now, since Liam Cohen has come in, right, just to Travis Hunter, who's very dynamic and is going to take our offense to me to another level. But they made it clear that BTJ is wide receiver one. He is the offense will run through Brian Thomas Jr. So and then Liam Cohen's made it clear that we're gonna move BTJ around. We're gonna get him the ball and as from screens, we're gonna put him in the slot. Imagine a 6'4" wide receiver in the slot running a 4.3 40. That's gonna be crazy, right? And just going to show too, like Brian Thomas Jr. can do it all with his physical abilities. And then again, Malik Neighbors, again, just he had his upside too. Now, I say like two was higher for Heisen. His upside too is through the roof as well. And if we'll see if, I think he could be more productive with Russell Wilson with those deep shots. We could see Malik Neighbors more as a vertical threat than what we saw last year. Because Russell Wilson, they want to get obviously play action, more play action. Malik Neighbors can run all the routes as well and probably use him down the field more. And we'll see if Jackson Dart, right? Jackson Dart, we'll see what he can do, right? With can they be the next wide receiver quarterback duo for the New York Giants for the future? We'll see if Jackson Dart can pan out, right? And then obviously, we got to get Trevor Lawrence healthy, and we got to get him playing at a high level, so that Brian Thomas Jr. can continue to elevate to being a top 5 wide receiver to 10 wide receiver in the NFL. But these guys certainly they're respectively, in my opinion, they're top 10. BTJ, even if you want to put him in the top 5, right now, because again, I think right now he is the better wide receiver. When you look at the box score, but also seeing what they did last year, then Malik Neighbors. But from a complete wide receiver standpoint, I think the more complete guy is Malik Neighbors. For those reasons, dating back to college, the physique, the talent, and etc. Shout out my boy Telly though for the video. Thank you guys for watching, and peace out.